Right. Yeah. I'm gonna check if the live works, and it should. Oh, nice.
Of my favourite space games of all
Oh my god. Can I fit this one to the screen? Right, good.
Two of my favourite space games of all time were released in the late 80s and early 90s. Video game technology has come along a long way since then.
Right, there's cheaters in
There's
this
two
game.
subjects I want to take a brief look at today for Elite Dangerous: botting and Frontier's latest financial report. Now, the botting issue is tangentially related to this week's issue report, and I'll get to that in just a moment. First though, for those of you wondering what botting is, this is where players use automated accounts to achieve certain goals. This may be a single account or multiple accounts. Often it might be used to manipulate the background simulation or power play. As you can no doubt imagine, running a farm of automated accounts 24/7 in any game will be capable of achieving results that no player could hope to match. Botting, of course, is rife in many online games. World of Warcraft is just one example among many of an online game that has struggled with the problem of botting for its entire history. If you're wondering to what extent this affects Elite Dangerous, well, a player group known as the Alliance Office of Statistics undertook a study of this back in 2018 and wrote an extensive report on their findings. You can find this report linked in the video description. So this report made it extremely clear that botting was, at the time, a very big problem. So if you, as a player, were enjoying playing the background simulation, then this becomes almost impossible when you are playing against automated accounts. It causes huge problems, and to this day it still appears to remain a problem, although the extent of that problem is relatively unknown. However, if you want anecdotal evidence, then you need only browse the official forums or the comments section of YouTube videos. So, how is this relevant to this week's issue report? Well, the issue report is made up of the top 20 community voted problems. Each of these subjects is taken from Elite's issue tracker. Interestingly, at number 6 on the issues tracker is botting. Frontier have chosen to exclude this issue on the issues tracker issues report. Quite naturally, some players have questioned why this item is missing, so Frontier have explained why that is the case. Here is what they had to say. In this case, the issue of automated accounts, we'll call it botting from here on, is one we're fully aware of, but is handled differently than standard issues like graphical bugs. Bot detection and account moderation is an ongoing effort, and while we know botting is a problem, it has not been processed on the issue tracker the same way as a typical issue would be. Botting cannot be reproduced and confirmed internally like a typical bug, and therefore has not entered the acknowledged state. For our top 20 issues report, we gathered the issue list from those marked as acknowledged, which is why it did not appear. Now, personally, I feel this is an absolutely reasonable explanation. Obviously, if it's not acknowledged, then it perhaps shouldn't be on the issues report. There's also another element here, which is Frontier not being willing to discuss how and why certain botting takes place, and this really is a similar policy to any security hacking or scamming policy from any number of companies. As an analogy, it's unlikely that a security firm would disclose the specifics of how someone broke the security measures of their system, so yes, this makes sense. What doesn't make sense, however, is why Frontier have traditionally been reluctant to discuss bannings. Returning to the World of Warcraft example, Blizzard regularly will announce how many accounts they banned for cheating or botting. Many other games do the same as well. I have to wonder why Frontier appear to be unwilling to do the same. It would certainly give the community some confidence that the issue is being taken seriously. So do let me know your thoughts and feelings on this subject in the comment section below. Do you feel the number of banned accounts should be disclosed? Do you even feel that botting is much of an issue? Or is it perhaps a subject that gets blown out of all proportion? Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Moving on to the second subject for this video then, Frontier's annual financials have been posted. These reports are a legal obligation for publicly traded companies within the UK, with Frontier having to disclose certain details about their business and their financial position. Keep in mind that this report is not aimed at the gaming community. This is firmly a business obligation and as such might not contain certain gaming specific details we might otherwise like to see. So, what stands out in this particular report? Well, there's some details about Odyssey, but they are very, very limited. Regarding the launch of Odyssey, Frontier have this to say. Completing this large and complex expansion without the benefits of face-to-face collaboration was challenging, and despite a successful alpha period, unfortunately the launch was hindered by connectivity issues, and this turned the positive reception of the alpha to one of negativity. Despite its initial challenges, hundreds of thousands of players are enjoying their experience. I am delighted with the underlying achievement by our team and remain confident that more and more players will upgrade to Odyssey over time as we continue to refine the experience. So there's a lot to pick apart in that paragraph, but I'm not going to go into too much detail here. Firstly, based purely off forum posts, YouTube comments, Reddit posts and other social comments, I don't think that the Odyssey Alpha was particularly positive. Definitely a mixed bag there, at least as far as I could see and in my opinion. Secondly, was it really connectivity issues that caused Odyssey's launch to receive negativity? I think we all know the answer to that one. But there's little point dwelling too much on this. This is clearly the position that Frontier want to present to the business world, and personally I believe that speaks volumes about their take on things. Now, within the report, Frontier have avoided disclosing
But what
sales
about
numbers for Odyssey.
Star Citizen?
Meanwhile, Frontier's brokers have also released a report on the company. Keep in mind that the information in this report from Liberum is written for investors and so generally is designed to look positive. In this financial year then, Frontier's revenue has grown by 19%, with the total revenue generated being 90.7 million, compared to 76.1 million in the previous year. There's a small section on Odyssey and consoles. The news here is slim at best. The report reiterates that Frontier are focusing on the PC version of Odyssey. There's still no release information on when Odyssey will come to consoles. This obviously is going to be a major source of frustration to console players, and I can completely relate to that. Interestingly, the report points out that the PC has around 2/3 of the total Elite Dangerous player base. In terms of revenue, the report forecasts that Elite Dangerous was expected to generate 15 million in the financial year 2022, which is £10 million downgrade from the 25 million previously forecast. This forecast downgrade appears to be due to the problems with Odyssey as well as the lack of information on the console release.
Yeah, but this
So
game
there
is...
we have it. Kind of expecting to, I'm hoping to see a bit more information on the specifics of Odyssey
It's not
in
like
this particular report, but it seems Frontier don't want to go into too much detail
PvP
there.
based.
Again, on this subject,
the
do let
core.
me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section below.
PvP
I'd
is
love
not
to
the
hear
core
from
of
you.
this game, so...
As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.
And mostly can be played solo, so it's not like, wow, like you need a group, raid. Don't do this. So I don't know to what point you can compare it to WoW, because I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
"2021 looks to be an impressive year for space games, bringing some updates and improvements which will dramatically change what it means to be a space game. This video then highlights many of the best titles for 2021, along with an outside look at what may be coming in 2022. Due to the sheer volume of space games that now exist, this video is being broken down into two parts. This part contains fully released games or games coming from fully established studios, whilst part 2 will contain all the titles coming from indie studios. In early 2021, the ambitious Elite Dangerous will finally be giving players the opportunity to leave their ships. The new paid update called Odyssey will open billions of planets for players to walk on, including many new worlds with light atmospheres. In Odyssey, players will be able to enter ground bases and space stations to engage with NPCs, mission givers, and
This footage was compiled in such a way, it's custom footage, custom scenes, so that graphic card can run. Nah, this is like
interact with the ships and
like a mirage.
Much more. The update will also bring a ground-based combat, allowing players to go toe-to-toe with
Ground-based combat. It's from 1 to 10, it's 3.
each other, or even enter settlements to assist or pacify them. Odyssey then marks the largest update ever for Elite Dangerous, in which players will be able to explore the entire Milky Way galaxy from a first-person perspective.
Well, I was thinking, where is this footage from which game? Because it doesn't look like Elite Dangerous, but I think I'm wrong.
The update will include various suits, weapons, upgrades, and a new range of engineers. Odyssey is set to release in the first quarter of 2020, with the outside possibility of further updates coming later. No Man's Sky is probably the biggest comeback title for any video game ever. 2020 saw some significant releases for the title, which included the release of the next delivered on 2020 dates to come. Ship variation go where you want, when you want. Then No Man's Sky is not only among the best space games of EVE Online. In fact, EVE Online has a massive heritage that could easily class it as the most updated space game currently available. With over 17 years of history behind it and over 20 expansions so far, it's hard to deny that EVE Online is something very special indeed. 2020 saw EVE Online split its updates into quadrants, with the fourth and final part called Phoenix changing the landscape of the game's galaxy. The Triglavian invasion hit the game world hard, redefining borders and even in some cases causing a relocation of masses of people. Additionally, the huge supercarrier ships saw a rework, giving them new features such as tactical clones, allowing players to respawn directly at a supercarrier ship. Whilst developers at CCP have not yet revealed their plans for EVE in 2021, we can rest assured that there will certainly be updates. And let's not forget that what makes EVE Online such an appealing game is that more or less everything is player driven, from the marketplace to every ship you fly, right down to every bullet you fire. If you're looking out for a game that has a complex player-run organisation with gameplay that has far-reaching consequences, then EVE Online is the ideal space game. The X series honestly deserves more attention than it gets. It's a series that kept the genre alive during the many years of the great drought of space games between the late 90s and around about 2012. X4 Foundations is the latest title in the series and continues with the massive update Cradle of Humanity. The Cradle of Humanity will see the X franchise once again return to Earth, allowing players to see what happened to the human homeworld after the final jump gate shut down. The update dramatically expands upon the size of the current game, introducing many new sectors. Many X4 players will know that the economy is certainly a central pillar of the series. In fact, manipulating and taking advantage of the economy is a side of the game that is enjoyed by many. The economy then will also be expanding in Cradle of Humanity thanks to the addition of new Terran factions. X4 is an impressive single-player space game that allows you to explore the galaxy at your own pace, build a massive fleet of ships, become the master of a massive economic empire, or simply choose to smuggle or pirate. You could of course do all of these and more. X4 Foundations has a whole ton of options and gameplay available. When I think of space games, my first thought is always of spaceships. The space game genre, after all, is traditionally set in space, and flying ships forms a huge part of that, and it really is a massive appeal of the classic titles such as Elite and Freelancer. However, the Mass Effect series left its own mark, a sci-fi series set in space which spawned the iconic ship, the Normandy. For that reason then, Mass Effect is certainly deserving of an entry in this video. 2021 will see the original trilogy remastered in a brand new release called Mass Effect Legendary Edition. This will be a single release that will contain all 3 original games in addition to all of their single player DLC. All 3 games have been updated with new textures, shaders, models and much more, all designed labour of love for the in space. It will be the perfect. It's fair to say that Space Engineers was the title that popularised the genre of building in space. Released as a pre-alpha in 2013, it had sold 250,000 copies by early 2014. The title left early access in 2019 for its full official release. With the ability to build spaceships, space stations and even ground bases, Space Engineers is the ultimate sandbox. Now, Space Engineers has been a labour of love for the developers Keen Software, with the most recent update having arrived in late 2020 called Wasteland. The update focused on improving the multiplayer experience whilst delivering the ability to create better vehicles, cars and rovers. The update also brought with it a whole range of material and blocks, expanding the possibilities of what it is to create. Whilst Keen Software are yet to speak about their plans for 2021, nonetheless, without a doubt, Space Engineers will continue to be updated in the years to come, and 2021 will be no exception. So, if you're more of the builder type of player, Space Engineers is certainly worth a look. With the ability to fly ships, get involved in combat, land on planets and walk around, and even get involved with the economy itself, this is a very nice space game. It's hard to believe that EA of all companies would have an entry for a genuine space combat shooter for the best space games of 2021, but here we are. Star Wars Squadrons arrived late in 2020, but delivered an almost perfect improvement upon the classic X-Wing and TIE Fighter games. The title is certainly a lot of fun and offers both a single-player and multiplayer experience. What's more is that the game also supports VR, and I really loved jumping into both an X-Wing and a TIE Fighter. Now, this is a bit of an odd one, as EA specifically stated there would be no DLC for the game, yet shortly after they said that, 2 updates were announced, bringing not only the addition of some free cosmetics, but also a brand new map. For the moment then, it's perhaps a bit of an outside hope that EA will continue to update the game into 2021, but at this point, I wouldn't completely dismiss it. With Stellaris, Paradox developed one of the best ever grand strategy games. What could be better than that? Well, setting it in space with spaceships, obviously. Fortunately, that's exactly what Paradox did. With a galaxy available to conquer, it's your job to decide how to explore, expand, exploit and exterminate. This can be achieved through peaceful or hostile means. Stellaris is easily among the best examples of modern grand strategy games. At this point, the title is over 4 years old, but during that time it has been continuously updated and rebalanced in order to keep the game fresh. The developers Paradox released DLC for this title on a regular basis, with Necroids being added in late 2020. The expansion added an undead race to the game called the Necroids, nothing to do with Warhammer's Necrons, I'm sure. It also added a bunch of new civics along with a new origin. Stellaris, of course, is also now available on consoles, which will see regular content updates throughout 2021, which includes the Megacorp expansion, the Distant Stars story pack, and the Lithoids race. Well, who doesn't know of Star Trek? The game, Star Trek Online, features just about every conceivable ship, location and detail from the immense backlog of stories, movies and TV shows. It's also a game that has been continuously updated ever since its release, all the way back in 2010. Star Trek Online then places players as a captain of a starship, giving them the freedom to explore strange new worlds and kick ass. The game was one of the early titles that allowed players to not only control spaceships, but also to walk around inside those spaceships, in addition to walking around on planets, something that a number of modern space titles are aiming for. For anyone even remotely familiar with Star Trek, the game world will instantly be recognisable to you. The latest update that arrived on PC in 2020 and consoles in early 2021 is called House Shattered and places Klingons front and centre. This included some experimental ship upgrades, improved Klingon character customization, and revamped the KDF Warzone.
That's what I'm interested in.
Warframe ranks among my personal favourite games, and it's one that I always find myself wanting to find more time for.
If you
the
put
game
Warframe,
places you
next?
in a
Destiny?
exosuit of immense power known as a Warframe, and sets you to work completing an untold multitude of missions across the solar system. The game's main focus is on PvE combat, which is why I enjoy it so much, but it also has a side helping of PvP combat for those who want to opt into that.
I didn't
The main
expect
focus
this to be
though
on
for
the
most
list.
people will very much be about pitting themselves against the hordes of evil spilling everywhere. And of course there's the upgrades. More upgrades than you could possibly imagine. So many upgrades. The game has many different areas to explore and exploit. Many of these are self-contained, enclosed maps, and others are, well, full open world effect would perhaps not be technically classed as a space game. After all, it's weird and appears to contain horses, galaxy, or looking for the next best trade route. However, the modern gaming era has decent combat potential to be easily be able to the brilliance. What we do know is that Beyond Good and Evil 2 will take players through a very complex
speed, Commander. Vector looks good.
I noticed things are much darker.
Maintain current vector, Commander. Get that ship locked down quick and safe.
If this is Odyssey, it looks like a downgrade.
Notice to all pilots, be aware of increased temperature levels within the station.
Wait, I have to move my camera.
Commander, we're advising all pilots to stay well clear of damaged structures. We're seeing multiple explosions.
Okay, it looks like a downgrade. Odyssey looks like a downgrade, and if damn, why it looks like a
To the
downgrade?
inner dock. Commander. Drop to approach speed, Commander.
Or it's not. Maybe it makes sense.
Vector looks
Maybe
good.
it's realism.
Maintain current vector, Commander. Get that
can't
ship
tell.
locked down quick and safe. Notice to all pilots, be aware of increased temperature levels within the station.
then, and of course, space games are once again pretty popular here in 2021. But how have expectations changed
No,
towards
they're
them
not
since their
popular.
resurgence around 10 years
That's
ago?
not true.
And do players now expect the impossible? At one point, it seemed that the simple act of having a spaceship, along with the freedom to fly it through space, was all people wanted. But here, today, it seems as though players want so much more. Let's jump back to those early space games for a moment then, to get an idea of where things started. Star Glider 2 was released all the way back in 1988. Not the true start of space games, but a point in time where technology had gotten sufficiently advanced enough to portray a semi-believable environment. Star Glider 2 then was a stunner for its time. Full 3D graphics with the ability to fly through space as well as to fly around planets. It might look rudimentary by today's standards, but in 1988 this was cutting edge. Combat was intense and exploration was engaging, including the great explorable tunnels on planets. Also, let's not forget those space whales.
What the
The
heck?
other title was Frontier Elite 2, released in 1993. Again, a space game that allowed players to explore, this time on a significant scale with hundreds of star systems and thousands of planets to land upon. Elite 2 allowed trading and fighting. It also allowed remote mining by leaving drones behind on planetary surfaces.
Wait, this is
Not to
Elite
mention
2?
many other activities, such as bounty hunting, transporting goods, passenger ferrying, and much more. All the features offered by these two games sound familiar, don't they? It's reasonable to suggest that these titles became a template for many other space games that came later. But eventually, space games more or less disappeared for a decade between 2000 and 2011. EgoSoft, meanwhile, managed to carry the torch for space gaming between that decade with the X series. Eventually, though, space gaming was to emerge on force in 2012. This big comeback came in the form of Star Citizen from Chris Roberts and Elite Dangerous from David Rayburn. From the enthusiastic response by the gaming community, it was clear thousands of people wanted more of the same. More space, more ships, more adventures. And for a while, it seemed that these two new games would recreate space games of the 90s whilst using modern gaming tech. People were certainly eager for detailed spaceships, a vast plane space, combat, trading, and adventure in general. At some point though, expectations of what a space game could be changed. Time and ambitious promises started to suggest what might just be possible one day. Imagination is a powerful thing, isn't it? Show someone a glimpse of what might be possible, and the imagination will extrapolate. But this extrapolation doesn't happen in isolation. After all, it's a point of fact that gaming tech has indeed advanced tremendously. It's certainly fair to say that open world games in general have started to become more and more about living a life in a virtual world. The more complex, detailed and involving that world is, the better. In short, the possibilities of what a game can be is so much more than it was back in 2012. The reason for this is very simple. Games have already shown what is possible by leading the way.
I believe he's
Naturally,
stretching
this
the
means that
video.
each new game is expected to exceed the possibility of previous games. Which brings us back to space games. Today in 2021, the question of what a space game can be and what it should be is very different to what it was in 2012. Games have grown, possibilities have expanded, and technology has progressed by several generations. This rapid pace of progress naturally poses a heavy challenge to most game studios. The Witcher 3 offered more than The Witcher 2. Cyberpunk 2077 offered more than The Witcher 3. At least, in theory, there's a development trap right there. Yet, for every perceived failure, there's many successes. Red Dead Redemption 2 was a substantial step up to GTA 5, and there's many more examples out there, which in turn brings a very specific problem. The pressure it puts on games development. And whilst I've cited the standalone titles so far, the pressures are arguably even heavier for live service games. A game that is expected to be played year after year without any sequels is also expected to keep up with the changes within the industry. For example, Warframe of 2021 is an immensely different game to Warframe of 2013. It's an evolution of necessity. games that don't change, stagnate, and the players move on. All of these challenges then place the current crop of space games in a very interesting position, and each of them are facing up to this challenge in different ways. EVE Online, by far the oldest of the current online space games, just released its latest update. Gateway aims at bringing new players into the game with brand new player experiences. The complexity of EVE has often been a long-standing challenge, and CCP continue to attempt to find new ways
EVE
to
Online
keep
has
interest alive and bring new players in.
amazing
Meanwhile,
cinematics.
Elite Dangerous recently released its Odyssey expansion, bringing players an on-foot experience for the first time.
Buggy
This marks a
experience.
true evolution as it introduces a completely new perspective
Frame
to
rate
the game in the
experience.
form of first-person gameplay. Yet it
I hate this video, so positive toward Odyssey and that, but the experience is not like that. It's a mess. It's frame rates, it's insane mess with the optimization, with the gunplay. Odyssey feels like no worth to pay the money at all. And there have been 7 patches, which I don't know, maybe they almost like barely had any impact towards optimization of the game, towards Odyssey. So nah, that's Odyssey is trash, garbage.
unfortunately found
At the current state, with optimization, it would be a whole new experience, yeah, but no. The real experience is a buggy mess.
to come even close to the first-person standards of a modern game. The Odyssey gameplay feels very much like a throwback to 15 years ago. Yet, it's impossible to deny that Elite Dangerous has expanded the possibilities of space gaming by an order of magnitude, with both its one-to-one recreation of the galaxy and its expansive flight model. Whilst not technically a live service game, X4 from Egosoft is a long-standing title with continuous ongoing development. The latest expansion, Cradle of Humanity, added a significant amount of new content, and over the years, the X series really has highlighted just how engaging a space game can be. And then there's Star Citizen. It remains an ambitious title as ever. If ever there were a game that had the concept of leading design by attempting to be at the forefront of what is possible, along with a massive list of promised features, then Star Citizen is that game. Yet, its lengthy development, missed development timeframes, and often delayed roadmap pose significant problems. What's more, gaming and graphics technology and games industry in general constantly outpace much of Star Citizen's development, meaning that CIG is caught in a situation
Next
of
they're gonna
constant
show
iteration and catch-up.
Star Citizen or
Yet,
No Man's Sky.
no one can deny that Star Citizen has dramatically focused attention on what space games can
Wait,
aspire
am
to.
I looking at it?
No Man's Sky, meanwhile, continues to surprise with each new update. Hello Games have perhaps the best development release cycle of all modern space games. That is, regular updates that fundamentally shift the focus of the game and expand upon what is possible. No Man's Sky isn't trying to be the best space game out there, rather it is trying to be the best version of itself.
Nice.
Ultimately then,
Yeah,
I
true.
thought that
That's
last
good.
sentence
No Man's
is
Sky.
fundamental
I should
in
try
making a
it.
good game. That is, aiming to make a title the best version of itself. Personally, I believe No Man's Sky leads the pack in that regards. However, all that said, in the end, all 5 titles I just mentioned have shifted expectations of what a space game can be, what a space game should be. It's a never-ending evolution, within which the player base will never fully be satisfied and will always continue to desire more. Existing titles have their work cut out for them, as they need to somehow match pace with this constantly evolving demand. Yet ultimately, it's the future games that will likely push the boundaries of both player expectations as well as what is technologically possible. Starbase, Hunternet Starfighter, Squadron 42, In the Black, Everspace 2, Kerbal Space Program 2 and Starfield are just a few of the titles that are focusing people's attention
I
on the
forgot
possibilities
about
of future space
Starfield.
games. So, do these titles have their work cut out for them? Are player expectations now so unreasonably and unfairly high? Or Is high expectations a consequence of the never-ending evolution of gaming tech? What type of gameplay would you like to see future space games deliver? Let me know in the comments section below.
Getting good.
I need to check, sorry.
All right. Rook to
One second.
Rook to C8.
Knight to G5. Check.
Okay. You're getting good, Mo. I'm impressed.
I'll be back.